Okay, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to discuss MasterPlex QT in this webinar. MasterPlex QT is our quantitative analysis module specifically for multiplex data sets. So before I actually get into the application, I've got a couple of slides. The first one discusses supported platforms. So MasterPlex QT will import raw data files from all of these platforms here, the Luminex XMAT platform, including the LX100 and 200 instruments, FlexMat 3D, and the MagPix instruments. Also the bio-Plex 100 or 200 instruments from bio-rad, and the Mesoscale Discovery sector instruments, data that comes out of their Discovery Workbench software. So MasterPlex QT can import raw data from all three of these platforms, and in some cases there's multiple instruments in each platform. If you are generating data on another multiplex data set and you're interested in taking advantage of MasterPlex QT for analysis, please feel free to get in touch with us and we'd be interested in talking about how to add that capability. You can go to our website at www.maribio.com to learn more about contacting us. Okay, so I just have one last slide here before we get into the actual application, just to kind of give you an overview of what we'll talk about today once we get over into the software. I'll show you how to import a raw data file. We'll talk about creating an analysis template. We'll do some quality control screening. We'll fit the curves, obviously, fit and optimize our curves, and then finally generate some reports and graphs. So I'm going to head over to the MasterPlex software now and open a example file. So this is a data file from a Luminex instrument. Right now we're in the plate tab here. This is where we set up our analysis template. I'll go through each of these tabs as we move through our workflow. In the plate tab, as I mentioned, this is where we set up the analysis template. This is where we also set our quality control screens. So right now we're looking at the median fluorescent intensity, which is the raw data from the Luminex platform or the bio-Plex platform for GM-CSF, and you can see where things are still in the plate view here, just to sort of make it easy to visualize as we're setting up the analysis template. The way that we handle the three-dimensional nature of multiplex data sets is we have this analyte panel here. So if I click on another analyte, you'll see that the values will update accordingly in the plate view. By the way, if you right-click on an analyte, you can always rename it. Sometimes when you import data from one of these platforms, you might just have the default names, and if you want to rename them for your reports, you can do so here. So I'm going to go to sample name now. This is another piece of data point that comes in when you import raw data, and this will help us visualize better as we're setting up the analysis template. So you'll notice these icons here. B stands for background. We've got standard, controls, and unknowns. And with this X here, we can unmark wells if we've erroneously marked one, and I'll show you that in a second. But the idea is the first part of the analysis template is to tell the software what types of samples we have on our plate, where on the plate certain samples are, and any replicate group information. And so the idea is you select a well or group of wells within a given replicate group within a given sample type, and then click the corresponding button. So as you can see, I have a couple of background wells in replicate, a 7-point standard curve in duplicate, 37 unknown groups, and a couple of control groups as well. So I'm just going to start with background. Again, you just select the wells, go ahead and click the corresponding icon. Now you'll see that there's some color coding in terms of sample type, so brown or background, and then we also have this dark outline here that indicates a replicate group. So I'm just going to move forward and do this for each of my standard points. I have a 7-point standard curve pipetted in duplicate. I should mention at this point that wells do not need to be contiguous to be part of a replicate group. So MasterPlex will handle any kind of plate layout you can throw at it. So just by simply using Control the control button on your keyboard, you can select non-contiguous wells and associate them into a given replicate group. This plate just happens to be laid out very nicely with replicates side by side. So I'm going to move now to the next sample type, controls. Here I have 2 control groups, and then finally my unknowns. And this will actually give me an opportunity to highlight kind of a neat little time-saving feature that's not entirely obvious. You'll notice when you mark a replicate group, when you initially mark it, you'll see this black square in the bottom right-hand corner of the replicate group shape. You can actually take that, click on it, and drag that shape across the rest of the plate. And this will work for any starting replicate shape. You don't have to have side by side. You can have stacked or triplicate or quadruple, etc. It's a little time-saving feature that not everybody can intuitively pick that up. So I'm just going to toggle the replicate group name now. As you have seen me kind of navigate through here, there's a number of different data types, I think 14 or 15, that you can display at any given time about a particular well and a particular analyte. So I started with MFI. I mentioned that bead count also comes in if you're importing data from the Luminex or Bio-Plex platform. Sample name will also come in if that's part of your raw data file. But as we start to annotate this raw data, we start to get other types of data, other data types become available, such as a replicate group name. So MasterPlex will go ahead and assign default names for your replicate groups, and this is a great time for me to point out that you can if you click on a plate and if you right-click on the plate, you can see that you can copy or paste. This is what I wanted to indicate here. You can paste in both sample name and group name. So if sample names were not in your raw data file, but you wanted to add them later, you can paste them in. And if you had group names, it's replicate group names that you wanted to use other than what MasterPlex assigned by default, you can paste those in batch. Of course, you can always double-click and edit manually any replicate group or sample name as well. So, and one other data type that becomes available once we indicate replicate group are the replicate statistics, of which we offer 3 different: mean, standard deviation, and percent CV. And we offer those both for the raw data that was imported, the MFI in this case, or calculated concentration, which we haven't calculated yet. So if I toggle to MFI average, you'll see that the replicate groups now reflect the average MFI. Okay, so the next step would be to enter, the next step in creating our analysis template would be to enter in the expected concentration for each of your standard points for each of your analytes. Now some of the commercial kits out there have a uniform starting concentration for each analyte, and some of them don't. But either way, we have a great little feature called the autofill that allows you to very easily populate these values. So I'm going to just go ahead and launch the autofill, and I'll show you that how this works. So the idea is, if you have a uniform dilution series, you want to indicate your highest starting concentration, and then your dilution factor. In this case, this was a 1:5 dilution, and your units. So you can choose from some of these predefined units, or this is actually a free text. You can type whichever units you want. And then the next step is to indicate the direction of your dilution on the plate. And you can see by all these icons here, MasterPlex really allows for any type of plate layout you could come up with. So your starting concentration doesn't need to be on the top, it can be on the bottom. You can pipette in rows versus columns. You can spill over columns or spill over rows. So just make sure that you indicate which direction you are diluting from. In this case, they actually happen to be, the highest concentration happens to be on the top. So I'll click that. And so when I hit apply and view, you'll see now my UI is updated to show me that the 1 to 5 dilution series is already calculated for me. So you can see the time savings here. If you had to enter each one of these values separately for each of the 7 points for each of the 10 analytes in this particular panel, and some panels are even more than 10 analytes, that could be quite time consuming. So this particular kit, all the starting concentrations were the same, so I left the default setting here of all. But if you had unique starting concentrations for each analyte, you would just simply toggle to the analyte, click apply, and then move to the next one, update the value, click apply, etc. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and exit from the autofill, and I'll just toggle through, and you'll see that these values are all the same here as I move through. So, at this point, I want to show you some of our quality control features, and probably the easiest one to show is screening out wells with low bead count. This is specific to the Luminex and Bio-Plex platform, but when the instrument does not count enough beads, you don't want to trust the data from those wells, so you want to be able to screen out low bead count. So I'm going to move to our bead count data type to make it a little easier to see what we're doing here, and I'll launch our quality control manager. So I'll give you a quick drive through the quality control manager and its features, and then I'll do the low bead count screen. So there's 5 different types of quality control screening that you can do. You can set manual thresholds for your raw signal, bead count, or concentration. You can have the software screen out wells that are below a lower limit of detection. You can have the software screen out wells that are above an upper limit of quantitation. You can have the software screen for replicate groups that have high CVs, and then finally you can have you could have the software screen out samples that have extrapolated concentration values. These would be values that are mathematically calculable, but they're above or below the highest or lowest concentration on your curve. So with all of these quality control screens, you have 2 options. You can, you actually have 3 options. You can just visually flag these wells. They'll be flagged here in the plate view. They'll also be flagged in the reports. Or you can actually commit them as outliers and have them removed from calculations. Or you could have both. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my lower bounds. I'm going to screen out all samples that don't have a minimum of 35 bead count, and I want to make sure that I'm applying this to all analytes. One kind of interesting thing is you can actually apply different manual screens to one or more analytes here, but in this case this is a universal criteria that I want to apply to the entire plate. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. I'll get a little warning to remind me that if I remove wells from outliers, they will not be used in any calculations, replicate calculations, background subtraction, fitting curve, etc. As you can see, any wells that failed to meet our criteria are visually flagged with these red boxes. And also if I go to outlier status, you'll see that they've been marked as outliers. And so this is actually happening on a per analyte basis. This is actually a good time for me to talk about outlier settings in general. So if you right click on any well, you can get to a submenu where you can toggle the outlier status of the well. You can fail a well for the current analyte or remove the well from calculations for a current analyte for the entire panel, or you can untoggle as well. You can actually do this in batch, so if you want to select a group of wells and manage their outlier status, you can do that as well. Okay, so at this point I want to move to the next step. So we've imported the data, we've created an analysis template. Now let's go ahead and fit our curves. So I'm going to go ahead and click the standard curve tab here now. So now we've navigated into the standard curve tab. I haven't applied any model equation or fit any curves yet, so we're going to see some sort of uncalculated data at this point. But I want to give you the opportunity to understand the different options that you have when applying a curve fit. So the first option is just to simply use our best fit feature. If you activate this feature, you hit calculate, the software is going to iteratively try a number of different curve fit model equation and weighting algorithm options and choose the best one for your data set. And again, this happens on a per analyte basis. So in this example, a 5-parameter logistics curve fit with a 1/y square weighting gave the best fit for GMCSF, but the software found that just a straight 5-parameter logistics with no weighting was the best curve fit for IFN gamma, and so on. So as you see, as I'm toggling through the analyte panel here, you'll see that my curve data and graphic chart is being updated dynamically. If you hold down the control button, you can actually overlay multiple curves here. These curve charts, you can customize the title and axis labels, and you can copy and paste these images into reports as well. So that's our first option, which is to use the best fit feature. But if you have if the kit calls for a particular curve fit, or you standardized your assay on a certain curve fit and you just want to apply that, you can simply manually choose from one of our 6 model equations and one of our 4 weighting algorithms, and simply apply those settings to the entire analyte panel. Or if you untoggle this, it will only apply the settings to the selected analyte here in this panel. So, but let's say we wanted to overwrite the best fit and just apply a 5PL 1/y squared to our entire panel. I would click the button calculate and go ahead, and that would update all of our curve fits to 5PL 1/y squared. Okay, now that we talked a little bit about curve fitting and optimizing your curve fit, I want to head back to the plate manager to talk about a very important feature of MasterPlex QT, which is our template manager. So all of the analysis settings that we just created, such as replicate orientation, sample type, plate layout, standard concentration, and even the preferred curve fit model equation or weighting algorithm combination, all of that can be saved in a reusable template. And so the next time that you do a panel like this, you can simply import the raw data, open the template manager, select your previously created template, hit load. It will automatically go to the calculation step, and you can move right to reporting. This can save a significant amount of time. We're literally talking seconds. I think at one point our team figured out that someone that was using reusable templates could go from data import to reporting in about 6 clicks. So the template manager is definitely an important part of MasterPlex QT experience. So at this point, we've actually done all the calculations. I can navigate to show you calculated concentration now. We can look at mean and standard deviation and percent CV for calculated concentration now that those values are available. However, looking at the data in a plate view, one analyte at a time, obviously is not optimal for these types of data sets. And so I'm going to move to the next part of the analysis process, which is basically now creating reports to get your data out and presentable in whatever format you need. So I'm going to move here to our data table, The data table is basically a drag and drop report generator. I'll just show you a little bit of what you can do. There's actually a lot of functionality here, but I'll give you a quick tour of it. So the first thing is this is just sort of the default view. All of these columns are movable, so you can drag and drop them in the order that you want. You can even create sub-sorted reports, sort of similar to an Excel pivot chart. By opening the column selectors, you can add or remove data types. So if you wanted to track outlier status or QC flags, but you didn't want to see one of these other data types that were there by default, but just by simply dragging and dropping, you can create this custom view of your data, and then simply export it to one of these formats. So you'll see that there's another template manager here. This is to save your report templates. So again, if you spend a lot of time setting up a preferred report template here, rather than having to recreate it every time you come into MasterPlex to generate a report, you can simply save it as a template, and after you apply your analysis template, come to your data table tab, choose the report format that you want, and export your data, and you can really save a significant amount of time. So this is our drag and drop report generator that exports to 6 or so file formats. The next tab here is our charting tab. There's a lot of functionality built in here as well. I'll just give you a little bit of a kind of an overview of it. There's a number of different built-in chart types and color schemes, and the idea is you build you graph the piece of data that you want, whether it's the raw MFI or the calculated concentration. You can select what type of chart, if you want to just look at all analytes per well, or if you want to look at a single analyte for a number of wells across the plate. You can pop up this plate view to decide which wells you want. Holding control click will allow you to add wells in a particular order. You can toggle back and forth between replicate view, which will show the average with error bars, or you can show each well. And in single analyte view, you can toggle between which analytes you want to graph here. And all of these charts are highly customizable using the chart properties button here. You can copy and paste all of these, or print or export in batch. And again, you've got a template manager here, so if you build a custom chart view, you can save it as a template, go ahead and export that, or create it with a couple of clicks and export it. So the template manager, you've seen it in several tabs now. It's an important time-saving feature of MasterPlex QT. So the last tab here is our export manager. There's not much to show here, but this is our interface into allowing data to be exported to MasterPlex in more advanced formats. So we can export in XML or in text or in HTML, and this is commonly used to create highly customized multi-sheet Excel reports. So as a service for our customers, we create templates that will allow them to transform their analyzed data in MasterPlex into highly customized Excel reports that are a little bit more advanced than what we offer with our Excel export with the data table. Another common use is to export data into a database or a LIMS system. So we offer this as a service. So if you're interested in learning about how to create customized reports out of MasterPlex, feel free to get in touch with us and we can discuss more about that. So I'd like to just go back to my PowerPoint and leave you on a final slide with our website. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this webinar. We have a ton of resources on our website, and if you'd like to get in touch with us, we have an instant chat feature there and all of our phone numbers and emails. So again, thank you for taking your time today to listen to this webinar about MasterPlex QT, and we look forward to talking to you soon.